Okay, we're going to start creating the card for the napkin fold card by creating the card base first. A couple of quick changes I'm going to make first are that we press Ctrl R to enable the ruler. So that's the ruler that comes on the left and the top. Then in the Artboard tab on the right, I'm going to enable Snap to Grid and change the grid spacing to 1/2 inch. If you're working in millimeters and want to change that, you can always go to Display and Unit and choose your preferred measurement unit. I like working in inches for card sizes because generally they come in at inches. Now for the base of the card, we're going to need a 6-inch square. So I'm going to click and drag a square from the Shapes palette on the left into my workspace. Now we can resize this two ways. One, we can drag the bottom right handle out until that's 6 inches, or we can go into the Edit tab, leave the Maintain Aspect Ratio lock enabled, and type 6 into the width, and then you see the height adjusts accordingly. Now I'm going to zoom into that square by either Zoom Selected Objects if you have the square selected, or Zoom All Objects on Matte. Either will work. Next, we need the Path tool. So we can either enable that by clicking on this icon over on the left, or as you see in brackets, we've got the letter P. So if I press P on my keyboard, that enables the Path tool and closes the Shapes palette on the left. Now we're going to need 2 vertical lines to start our score line collection. First one will be at 1.5 inches across, and the other will be at 4.5. So I'm going to start here by left clicking on that 1.5 inch mark, and as I drag you can see the other end snaps to the grid. I'm going to drag that all the way down to the bottom and double click to set that in place. I'll then reactivate the Path tool and do a second one in the same way over on the right. Next up we need some diagonal lines. So I'm going to enable the Path tool again, start where my first line started, click, and then drag diagonally until it comes into the 1.5 inch down point and double click. Enable the Path tool again. This time click at the 3-inch mark to start your line, and then drag that diagonally until it reaches the 3-inch down on the left hand side. Next we're going to go across from that, start our line here, and then drag that diagonally until it reaches 3 inches across on the bottom edge. Double click to set in place. Then we're going to basically mirror what we have up here by starting our line 1.5 inch or 3 blocks up from the bottom right corner, and drag that down until it reaches the bottom of that second vertical line. Now we need to place our horizontal score lines. So I'm going to enable the Path tool again. Start where our last diagonal line started, drag across, double click to set in place, and then again 1.5 inches down from the top, so 3 blocks, and set that in place. Now we're going to repeat these diagonals but in the opposite direction. So enable the Path tool, and I'm going to start 1.5 inches down, so where this horizontal line started, drag it up diagonally and double click to set in place. And then basically I'm going to continue working with those diagonals until I have everything in place. So there we have all of our diagonal lines. Now these are score lines, so we need to change them from solid lines. So in the layers palette, I'm going to select all of these. So select the top one, find the bottom one, press Shift on your keyboard and left click, and that will select everything in between. Press Ctrl G to group them, and we can call this score lines. Now in the Properties tab on the right, we can go in and select the dash pattern. I'm going to select this one where we've got short cut lines with big spacing in the middle. Finally, in the Layers tab, I'm going to move this shape above the score lines. And basically what this means is the score lines will cut first and the outer shape will cut second. Brother CanvasWorkspace works bottoms up. So basically anything that's at the bottom of the stack will cut first, working its way all the way up to the top. I'm then going to select both of these and group them and call this card base. So now if I move this around, the score lines and the card base move together. And if I zoom out, you can see that if I resize this, all of the score lines resize appropriately as well. Next up, I want to create the decorative panels. So I'm going to zoom back in. I'm going to lock this in place, and then I can start creating the decorative panels. I'm going to use the Path tool again for this. So we'll press P on the keyboard, and then basically I'm tracing over the lines that are already there. So that's my first triangular shape. And to help me see that I've gone through and done everything appropriately, I'm going to apply a fill colour. And you can see there I've now got a triangular shape over here. Enable the Path tool and do its counterpart. Path tool again, and we'll do this small one here. The colours are irrelevant, they're just really for me to see that I have in fact filled the section or indeed created a triangle for that piece. Now with these 4 done, we can actually just copy and paste to fill the rest. So I select all 4 of those, Ctrl C and Ctrl V on the keyboard to copy and paste. Then I'm going to position my cursor over this little icon at the top until it changes the cursor to a circular arrow. Hold the Shift key on my keyboard to constrain it to 45-degree angles. Click my mouse button and rotate until it's rotated 90 degrees. And then I can move that into position. Ctrl V again to paste another copy of that. Rotate it and move into position. Ctrl V again to paste another one, rotate and put it in position. That's all of the outer triangles done. Now I'll do these 4 inner triangles. And again we can copy and paste this one as it's exactly the same size all the way around. And then just move into place. And then we can either drag in a square from the square shape or just very quickly plot a square for the center. Okay. Now we have all of the panels blocked in, but we actually want to offset those so that they're smaller than the original shapes. So I'm going to drag a selection marquee, so click and drag to select everything there. Then I'm going to go over to the Edit tab, scroll down, click on Offset. I'm then going to set the spacing to 0.15 inches, set the offset direction to inwards, set the corner type to bevel, and then for the original line, which is all of these coloured shapes, we're actually going to delete those after CanvasWorkspace has created the offset lines. Then click OK. Now we have all of those panels created. If you don't like the size of that, you can undo it by pressing Ctrl C, select them all again, offset, change the size, leave everything else as it was, and then click OK. That works for me. Now, if you are going to do all of these in exactly the same colour or cardstock, if you have an omnidirectional cardstock pattern, then you can leave these exactly as they are and cut them out as they come. However, I want to use a directional pattern that runs up and down the paper, so I'm going to reformat these. I also want them to be different colours in different sections. So I'm going to start out by applying a fill colour to each of the ones that I want in each section. So first up, the 4 outer triangles. I'm going to apply a fill colour. Then on these inside diagonal triangles, I'm going to select all of those. So I'm holding the Shift key down and clicking every single one I want contained within that group. And then the larger triangles, I would like to match up potentially with these just 4 triangles here. So we'll give that, oops, different colour, same colour, there we go. And then for the centre one, I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. So what I want to do now is get all of these different colours into different groups. So probably the easiest way for me is to left click, press Ctrl on the keyboard, and then click all of the ones that I want to go into a specific group, and then press Ctrl G. And as you can see, it's now brought all of those into a single group. And then for the other colour, I'm going to press Ctrl G after selecting them all as well. So now I have these in different groups. This means that I can potentially lock and hide some while I'm working with others. Now to work within a group, you have left clicked to select it. If you then left click again, as you see, it greys out the background and allows you to work just with the objects within that group. So as I say, I've got a directional pattern, so they're all going to face the same way. So I'm going to select and rotate and position. Actually, I want that one up there. Okay, so now we've got, let's call this colour 1, and we can move that to the top left corner. We'll then hide that and lock it, unhide and unlock the other one, and then again we click and click again to get into the group, and this time I'm going to select multiples and rotate and position. And now we have our little group. We can position that again somewhere near the top left, and we'll call that colour And let's hide and lock that. Now for this center one, I want to create a sentiment to go in the middle. So I'm going to start by creating an offset. So in the Edit tab, Offset, and let's say 0.15 for this. This time I want to keep the original shape and set this to Leave As Is. I'm going to set this inner version to Draw. Then I'm going to press T on the keyboard to select the text tool. And I will type just, oops, not in capitals, just A for just a note. I'm going to resize that a bit, and I'm going to apply a fill color. And as opposed to just being visual on screen here, once I set this to draw in CanvasWorkspace with a fill color, this will automatically assume that we want to fill this with our drawing tool. So when it comes to setting things up on the Scan and Cut machine itself, we also need to remember to set the draw fill pattern as well. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. Because we don't have a carriage return facility with text, I'm going to create a second line by clicking again and then dragging this over, matching the size and applying a draw fill color or a fill color. And then in the Layers tab, I am going to group those two, move the final square shape to the top, so you can drag and drop that if you need to. And then I'm going to select the shape and the group and group that. So we've got a stacked group. So we've got our text here and our square shape here. This gives me the benefit of being able to align these using the alignment tools in the Edit tab. So we know they're fairly centrally vertically, but horizontally you can see just a note is sitting a little bit below. So we'll use the horizontal alignment tool to put that in the middle. Now we're going to move the cutting shape for that into that group. So now we have the drawing of the shape and the text and the cutting line in one group. And that means we can select that group and move it. So let's just run through those elements again. First, we have our card base that will cut from our main cardstock. Then we have the second color that will form the little triangles on the inside. Then we have the first color, which will form the triangles, the large triangles on the inside and some of the smaller outer ones. And then we have the sentiment, which will both draw and cut. So when you come to export this, you'll enable and unlock the layer that you want to transfer. You'll go to File, Export Transfer FCM File. This warning message will come up because we have things hidden and locked. So it's saying things that are hidden won't be transferred and things that are locked won't be valid. And that's fine, that's what we want. So we click OK. And then you would choose whichever method of transfer you prefer. If you use a USB stick, it will be this one here and you'll save it to that USB stick. If you use Wi-Fi transfer, you'll use this option here. And if you use a cabled connection, you'll use this final option. You'll then repeat this after cutting or drawing or whatever for each one. So we hide and lock the card base, then unhide and load up color 2. Now because this is quite a small design, we could in fact put both on one sheet and just cut our cardstock to fit the areas and then use the preview function on the machine to position the cardstock or position the design wherever we need it to be. Just make sure that the layers you want to transfer are visible and unlocked. And again, you would transfer that exactly the same way. Now, if you want to save this project to come back to later, don't forget that's slightly different. You will choose either save or save as, and then it will save it out as a project file as opposed to a cutting file. Okay, next up, I'll give you a couple of hints on how to set things up on your machine for the drawing, and then we'll get on to constructing the card. For all CM models of the machine, the settings are pretty much the same. The retrieval method might differ because you might be using a cabled connection or a USB connection, but generally your draw fill settings are in the settings menu under fill additional line. You'll need to make sure that you have this solid block pattern applied, so that's pattern 01, and then the fill line spacing should match the nib size of the pen you are going to use. So in this case, if it was a 0.3 marker, a 0.3 millimeter marker, you would change this to 0.3 millimeters. That should then give you a solid fill for your text. You can then go ahead and send this through using OK to confirm, then select Draw, and the machine should then basically select only the inner square and the text. You can access the draw fill settings at this point, and then once you have finished drawing, you can go ahead and set the machine to cut, and that should only cut the outside edge, as we've set those differences up in CanvasWorkspace. When it comes to DX models, again, the transfer method might differ, but the settings are the same. You can access the draw fill settings through the Edit, Object Edit, and then Draw Fill. Make sure it's set to on, it should automatically be so because we've chosen that. Make sure the pattern is the solid fill, and make sure the line spacing matches the nib width of your pen. So again, if you're using a 0.3 millimeter marker, change that to 0.3 millimeters. Work your way through the confirmation screens until you get to the object output settings. Choose draw, and again it should choose only the square and the text. Set up your speed and pressure according to the settings you know to be appropriate for the pen choice you've made. And once you've finished drawing, you can change over to cut and send that through to cut. Okay, so once you have sent that through to cut, then you will have your card base here. Just a couple of very simple rules. All of the diagonal folds are mountain folds, so you'll fold those away from you so they form peaks. And all of the vertical and horizontal lines will be valley folds, so you'll fold towards you so they create a trough. Then you'll push in the peaks on each of the four sides so they meet in the middle, fold down the little triangles on the corners, and then you have your napkin fold card. If you've done this project at the size suggested, you'll have a 3-inch square card, which opens out to create a 6-inch square flat. Now, of course, you would stick all of your triangles down. Decoration, generally you would stick to the outer triangles, the small triangles on each of the corners. But do bear in mind that you can resize this. Make sure to group everything before you resize it so that it takes everything with it and scales proportionately. This one was cut at 10 inches square. So there we go, a napkin fold card designed from scratch in CanvasWorkspace and created with your scan and cut. Time to give yourself a pat on the back if you've made it this far, and I hope you've enjoyed your time making and creating.